we'll break up the introductions too. So Stephanie and Halise, maybe Stephanie, you go first. You're at the top of my grid here. Would you mind just giving everyone a brief overview of you and your organization?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Mendeloff. I'm the founder of CREA, Curriculum and Consulting, which is an education nonprofit in San Antonio that works with 4th through 8th graders in schools across the city. And our mission is to grow the next generation of creative leaders. And we do that through after school programming, through teacher training, and through curriculum products that guide kids through designing and executing projects that are meaningful to them. And in the process of designing their projects, we really want them to be asking questions like, who am I? What do I care about? What am I great at? And what impact do I want to have on the world around me? So that's the core of what we do. And my background is as an educator. So I started as a teacher. I taught 6th through 8th grade English, photography, and magazine writing, back when magazine writing was still a relevant thing. Then I did instructional coaching and was a curriculum writer for schools, 30 schools across Texas. And left all that to start CREA almost 2 years ago now. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here and honored to be among the other panelists whose work is really admirable.
Stephanie. Halise.
Yeah. Hello, I am Halise Narvaez. I am the executive producer and creative director for Stumblewell Productions here in San Antonio. It's a production company that I started in 2018 after I got a grant from YouTube as a YouTuber to create content combating hate speech and xenophobia on the platform. And then from there, getting that grant along with a grant from Adobe, essentially, I was able to start Stumblewell and keep it going. I would say their biggest claim to fame is producing a show for PBS's digital studios arm called Say It Loud, which is a show talking about African-American history and culture and context. We wrapped season 1 of the show last year in October. And so when I'm not doing traditional production work, I am a full-time YouTuber as well. I manage 2 YouTube channels, a personal channel called Halise, where I document my chaotic good life with cinematic storytelling, trying to use this film degree I got from UT. And then I also manage Sans Gluten, which we started this year, which is a gluten-free cooking and baking channel. That's
awesome. Yeah, it's going to be funny in a little while. We're going to talk about her sabbatical. So I want to start it like we talked about, Stephanie and Halise. I think both of y'all had entered this the season of quarantine and COVID and just all of the changes and that have occurred around us all happened at like pivotal times in your personal lives, which we'll kind of get into. But I'd love, maybe Stephanie, we'll start with you. If you can kind of take us back, what was the first business pivot that you had to make that made COVID real to you?
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure if I'm choppy, but if I get choppy, you guys can tell me in the chat because I'm getting some choppiness and I'll turn my video off or something. But yes, my first pivot. Yeah, so I was on maternity leave when COVID started, when shelter in place started, with a 2-month-old baby, and taking some time away from CREA. And so when I planned to come back, which was the end of April, I had very well laid plans for what re-entering work would look like, which clearly kind of I couldn't follow through on those plans. So I would say my first pivot was, the first thing that started making it real was all of my meetings that I had planned for April to begin partnerships with schools in the fall were one by one getting canceled because no one had the capacity to think about the future. No one had the bandwidth or the information to plan for the fall. And so I really had to think about less about the future and more about what can I offer my customers like right now immediately that will meet a need, and also that will allow me to do the work that I do best. And so although my meetings were getting canceled, which I guess were like sales meetings to start selling my curriculum and my partnership for the fall, I started to think of those meetings more as like empathy interviews. And so I really, I offered my customers free resources. They could give their teachers and their families to implement at home. And then I also just used those meetings to talk through like what their immediate needs were, what they were struggling with, how they were pivoting, and how I could support them in their pivot. And stopped thinking so much about how to sell my products and started thinking more from a place of how can I support the very real challenges that schools and families are facing with distance learning and school closures.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to shift, I think there's a lot of perspective shifts that were necessary, but I think the term you used was an empathetic interview. That's really cool to take away for me, for sure. Halise, how about you as far as, the first business pivot? And again, an interesting time for you specifically. If you want to talk about that now, we can move into it later, but you were in a point in your career where you were on sabbatical. What did that kind of look like for you? What business pivot kind of made it real?
Yeah, I had decided after we had wrapped season 1 of Say It Loud that I wanted to kind of take 6 months off from traditional production work like that to just kind of get back into the storytelling and focus more on the YouTube channel and grow that and just have that be something I was doing. So downsizing a little bit to just me running everything. Yeah, and then COVID happened. And so it basically was interesting because it forced me to just really double down into that idea. For better or worse, with COVID-19 happening, I became a full-time YouTuber because the very nature of traditional production work is to, be in close proximity with people, filming people directly and interviewing and stuff. So that really just is not an option right now. We all need to be social distancing and wearing masks and all that kind of stuff. So I really was just like, okay, so I just have my living room. I need to tell stories from my living room now full time rather than part time. And that was my just big pivot, drilling down into the sabbatical basically.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that people think a sabbatical is like, at least in my mind, maybe a little bit of a break sometimes, but really for you, it was truly a shift. You were still very, very busy.
Yeah. I basically took an academic sabbatical. So a lot of people
Right.
in academics will do that. They'll take a year off from teaching classes to go write the next book to come back and teach classes. And so that's kind of going with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Stephanie, you kind of touched on this a little bit. I'm kind of going to do a little back and forth, by the way. Y'all probably recognize this already, but you touched on this a little bit with your perspective shift, but did you find yourself turning to any kind of mission statement as you were having to make these pivots? Did you turn to any kind of mission statement to kind of dictate or figure out your next steps?
Yeah, I think the language that Halise used is helpful, like drilling down into like what is most essential about what CREA offers felt really important during this time. I had such an aimless feeling at the beginning, and there was so much noise, especially in the education space. Like every organization and every like ed tech company, like everyone was like, here's all the resources, here's everything to support you in your distance learning journey, here's like your fine-tuned homeschooling schedule, and I was overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that was being thrown at families and at schools. And so to me, it felt really important to like get clear on what I and CREA could uniquely offer that would actually add value and not just be like another thing to pile on the plates of parents and of teachers. And so one thing that I found myself doing was actually pausing and waiting for that initial panic to sort of dissipate and just feel out how things were going to be like in the longer term, not just in the immediate response to school closure. And then from there, thinking through like, because there wasn't any work I could really be doing on the day-to-day at that moment, schools weren't open, I do my work in partnership with schools. And on top of that, I couldn't really plan for the fall because schools had no idea what the fall was going to look like, or even what the summer was going to look like. What made me feel sane and what made me feel purposeful and what made me feel like I was continuing to forward my mission was just every time I sat down to work, I committed to doing one mission-driven act. And so my to-do list, I would, might have 3 things that I had to get done that day, and maybe 2 of them were tactical, but one of them was always mission-driven, whether it was like publishing 1 free resource on the website or refining the curriculum so that if it can be purchased in the fall, or if schools do have the budget to purchase it in the fall, it's like the best it can be. So I definitely found myself just getting super clear on what it was that I could uniquely offer to forward my mission, and organizing my days around that at a time when it felt really hard to organize my days.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on something that's been really hard and maybe not natural for anyone, but especially entrepreneurs, is to pause. Because I think the general response is to feel a need to react. And in some cases, especially this being something that is new to everyone, that kind of discipline, I think, to pause and reflect on mission has been really important. And that is admirable. That really is, Stephanie. Elise, it seemed like you mentioned before, you were sort of already drilling down, and had kind of started making some pivots already. Did quarantine and COVID, and did any of that kind of make some of your decision making maybe more clear, or did you find yourself too kind of maybe utilizing a mission statement or belief as you kind of continue to, and maybe you're still doing this, but still kind of forming like what your channels would look like and kind of life moving forward?
Yeah, by the time we were officially locked down, I had already moved into pre-production with Sans Gluten, the gluten-free baking channel. So with that, it was more just kind of like stay on the steady course that like the production schedule I had built for that channel. But with my personal channel, with the Halise channel, I really felt the need to meet people with where they were at and acknowledge what was going on, but also try to, like, I started using the hashtag like wholesome content a lot. Just trying to give people a moment of just like, hey, we're all at home together. And YouTube also actually had a hashtag series as well called Stay Home With Me. And so I basically started putting a lot of that type of content into the channel. A lot of just like, hey, I'm losing my mind. Here's me losing my mind in a cinematic, chaotic way. Can we relate? I think we can, and just basically trying to create content around the idea of like, I know you're going through this, I am too, but as someone who is on YouTube, I am here to entertain you. Like, that's really what my job is. And so how can I entertain you, but also make you feel seen and understood and heard through this like very confusing, very chaotic time that we're all on. And so it really kind of doubled down into the type of content I was already creating, which was already, I would say, very wholesome PG content in general. But I really it helped me to focus my voice in that messaging a lot, going through all of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Did the response from your followers, I don't know, did it surprise you? Is it kind of what you expected? We've kind of talked some offline about the wholesome content and just how people were grateful for that. Just, I guess, ability to kind of step back and maybe, like you said, like be entertained. But did any of that surprise you, or was there anything that you produced specifically that surprised you as far as general response from your audience?
Yeah, a lot of people really appreciated. There was a video I did in partnership with Skillshare. It's an online learning platform. And a lot of people really appreciated it because I showed sort of like, as cinematically as I could, the sort of like mundaneness of it all. So like watching me make tea, like, and the only thing that's changed about the shot is that I'm in a different shirt, and all the sort of things I was trying to do to like kind of not go crazy being at home so much. And so talking about like, I just tried to decompose an orange in my jasmine plant on the porch. It's day 10 of that, like showing just the journey of trying to figure out how to keep my mind busy really resonated with a lot of people. And and it was interesting, a lot of people actually ended up getting ideas of how they could kind of like just change their environment at home just a little bit to get through it,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's pretty special. I think one of them too, we talked about that your viewers even enjoyed an episode where you focused, I don't know if episode is the right term, but on plants, like just something that was like distracting and normal, so to speak, I think is something, again, that we're as a community sort of craving. Okay, so Stephanie, you mentioned this or alluded to this earlier, but you were on maternity leave. So you have a brand new baby, which congratulations, is always in order. She's precious. But you had a baby during a pandemic, so and you're an entrepreneur. So how have you found that experience to be unique? What has balance look like during a new season in general, but in addition to the changes that we're all experiencing?
Yeah. I mean, for me, motherhood I've never been a mom before, so all of it is unique. Every part of it is new and confusing and beautiful and amazing, but also insanely challenging. And I think that's all normal for motherhood, but that's just intensified by the circumstances. And so I guess I would say some of the big things that I grappled with in being an entrepreneur and a new mom during a pandemic I felt some very real identity challenges in all of this that I think a lot of people are feeling about their relationship with work, but that is also very normal as a new mom to have questions about like, hey, who am I now that I'm a mom? How does my relationship with work change? If my passion for my work is different, what does that say about me as a career woman? If my passion for work is the same, what does that say about me as a mom? So like all these like very real identity things were coming up for me, even before COVID happened. And then COVID happened and my ability to go back to work in the way that I had planned to go back to work suddenly changed. And so all those questions felt even more like intense and visceral and real. Because my control over the situation was suddenly taken away. And so I would say balance, I'm still figuring that out. But what has worked for me is just creating systems that allow me to be, first of all, extremely forgiving and extremely gentle and really accepting of all of the identity stuff that's going on within me and how that manifests in my daily life, and systems that allow me to like really turn on with work when the opportunity arises, like the instant the baby goes to sleep, like I can just open my computer and get stuff done in like a really concentrated amount of time in a way that I never could for some reason when I didn't have a baby. It was just much more distractible. And I think balance has looked like, and I don't know if this is a COVID thing, I think it might be, but just like having to turn off certain parts of my brain, like the questioning part of my brain that can like easily go down a rabbit hole of like, what does the future look like? How am I going to make this work? Like, I just have to shut that off and like just move into action sometimes. And so, and with motherhood, I have to move into action in really small pockets of time that are available to me. And so a lot of compartmentalizing, but also compartmentalizing in a way that in spaces that are very non-compartmentalized, like my work and my mothering are happening in the same living room table, in the same nursery, like that sort of thing. So I have to create like mental boundaries because I don't have physical boundaries.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And boundaries, I think, can be hard in general, with motherhood, but I think even more so when structure looks different and we're having to kind of figure out on our own what that looks like. But the complexities and beauty, and like you said, like it's beautiful as well. It's new life. It's wonderful. It really is. It's just also complicated. So we may have touched on this a little bit, but Elise, let me ask you this. Have you had a voice of support, and this can be author, resource, podcast, someone in your family, but has there been a voice of support that you've kind of leaned into during this time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been a couple of, I would guess say like buckets. So there's a podcast that I listen to called The Creative Pep Talk. And it's a guy that he's an illustrator, and he's a very eccentric person. His voice is hilarious, but he gives I believe he has diagnosed, like, I think he has like ADHD or something. And so the way he thinks visually is very fascinating, and he brings that into the podcast. So every podcast has an illustration for the cover and all this kind of fun stuff. But he does a lot of speaking gigs, a lot of talking about breaking up your creative career and how to think about it and how to pivot. And I'd already been listening to him for like a year or two before all of this happened. So it really helped to just sort of double down and like check in with his podcast again, to sort of reinforce ideas that you have to kind of just waver through with things like this. I also have been in an accountability group with another YouTuber and subsequently production company owner for years, like 4 or 5 years. We meet every month and talk about what are the tangible goals we're trying to accomplish for that month. And then I definitely would recommend that if you're someone in a career path that you're just having someone to kind of bounce ideas off of, and also having someone that you have to tell every month why you didn't do the thing, like explain yourself to somebody. Because yeah, it hits a little different when you're just like, I didn't do it because I was lazy, you know, like when you don't have an excuse, it's hard to say that out loud and feel that in your heart, you know?
Yep.
And then just like, yeah, I mean, the subscriber base and all of that, you know, if they don't watch, I don't get anything. So the fact that they're going through this with me as well and supporting me and vice versa, a lot of reasons why I stay on the YouTube platform is for the community. And in the comment section, we are having deeper discussions and keeping things going. So I think it's been a combination of those three things, aside from having an amazing partner, obviously, that has kept me like sane for sure.
For sure. Yes. Shout out to all the amazing partners that keep us sane. Those are really helpful. We'll be taking some notes on the resources that come up during this conversation too, just so we can share them. I know that that's probably something that would be helpful for you know, the creatives out there, or just entrepreneurs in general. I think entrepreneurship has a level of creativity built into it. So that's great. Stephanie, how about you? Have you had a voice of support again, or a resource or something along those lines that has kind of helped you, especially on the days that have been hard?
Yeah. I have two concrete ones, but I couldn't really think of like one that really stood out. I mean, just talking to other moms has been really helpful. Part of and other moms that are navigating entrepreneurship particularly, but you know, my own mom, my sister who has kids, you know, but they haven't had kids during a pandemic, so it's a little bit different, but it's still nice to have them to talk to. And then as far as like concrete resources, there's this podcast called The Daily Stoic that has been really soothing for me to listen to, and also like a reminder of just sort of how to stay connected to what's most essential in your work. They're like 3 to 5 minute episodes, all based in Stoic philosophy, on topics ranging from like lifestyle to productivity to business acumen, things like that. And the other one a book that I've gone back to a couple times is a book called How to Do Nothing, and the author is escaping me right now. I should have looked that up before this. But it's a book all about really using quiet and pause to activate purpose and to be a good activist. And I think my connection's bad, but yeah, How to Do Nothing is a good one.
That's great. And I like that you used the term that it was soothing for you, because I think that on some level for everyone on this call, entrepreneurs or not, there's been a degree of, you know, it's been a hard or traumatic experience. So it's like, if you can find resources and things that are soothing and that are also stretch you and grow you, like those are all really positive things. And so, and then after, Stephanie, if you want to send me the author too, we can share those out after too. So yeah, that's perfect. We've got just probably time for like one more question before we see if there are any questions from the participants. So, and I think it would be helpful to, some of this we've touched on lightly, but maybe to dig a little bit deeper. Elise, is there anything that, are there projects that you've had, you know, before sabbatical, but is there anything that you planned on doing that you were not able to because of quarantine and COVID, anything that you had to halt? And have you found that to maybe possibly have been a good thing as opposed to bad? anything that you had to put on hold that actually may have been, quote unquote, for your good?
Yeah, I mean, there was content that I really wanted to produce for the channel around a little bit around some social justice, climate type stuff. So I wanted to do a series on the channel about composting and composting in my apartment, and reach out to another business, Compost Queens, to like partner with them. And we started having that discussion, and I wanted to do really do a documentary series on it on the channel.
Cool.
And kind of show how they're closing the gap and all that kind of stuff, but make it very tangible for people. So it's like, if you don't live here in San Antonio, here's how you can compost at home and keep it very contained and simple. Like, it's not as hard as you think, give a tangible takeaway to it. But obviously, yeah, this happens. And so it's kind of like, well, I cannot go film you now. So that was a project that I had to put on hold that I was pretty bummed about, because it's really fun.
Yeah.
Film people. So I was really sad about that project, but it is happening. It will happen.
Just postponed.
Yes.
That has been hard. The things that were especially fun or we were passionate about that you've had to, maybe postpone. And Stephanie, I feel like education is just,
It's like
parents and
indefinitely on pause.
I mean, it kind of, so many questions. I mean, as I have school-aged kids, and we're just same as like this season of limbo and just, indefinitely.
Yeah, I would say I'm very much still in limbo. And anything that I think is a certainty, like any partnership that I feel is like a yes, could any day be a no, just because we don't know if school's opening in the fall really and what it's going to look like. So everything is kind of on pause. I'm still doing virtual summer camps in partnership with some of the ISDs in San Antonio. And I have potential partnerships for the fall. But everything's really on pause. And I think the silver lining in that, which is sometimes hard to identify, is it's helped me get clear on, like, it's helped me see the value in smallness. Like, I feel like as an entrepreneur, there's always this like desire and urge and even pressure to like get bigger and grow and scale and expand. And I think what I've learned from all of this is that really what I want out of my entrepreneurship is to feel a sense of purpose and to feel like I'm doing my best work and to feel like I'm having an impact on my community, and for my days, the way that my days look, to make me happy. And so that has felt, I've connected with that more deeply through COVID-19 than I think I was before, where I was just like, I need to hire and I need to like be in every school in San Antonio. And then like, I want to expand beyond San Antonio. And now I'm just like, I just want to do my work, do it well, do it at a scale that makes me happy and allows me to like still be a good mom and spend time with my family and have friends and have hobbies and like all that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's permission in kind of saying too that we don't have it. I don't think anyone, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for everyone here, but you don't have to have it all figured out. And it can be something that's figured out as we go, especially in a situation like this where there's just so many unknowns and variables. So I think I actually can ask one more question. And I'd love to know from a city of San Antonio resource wise, was there anything like from any resources that maybe still now you could point entrepreneurs to, and it's okay if not, but from a like financial aspect or just anywhere that you would direct them if they have questions about where to find more support? Is there anywhere that you have found to be especially helpful? Either one of you, sorry, Stephanie or Halise.
Elise, I feel like you'll be better at this than me.
I was going to say the same. I thought you'd be better at this than me. I mean, aside from Launch SA, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and not to like plug the other location that we're using, but the impact yield honestly wasn't the it really was. I mean, if you look at the channel, when I was going through a time that was actually pretty difficult for my husband and I, and we didn't have a reliable place to stay, using the impact yield as the backdrop for a lot of my YouTube videos actually really helped us out a lot in growing the channel. So I would say lean into organizations that are trying to find community and cultivate community in that way. But yeah, I mean, Launch SA, you know, that's kind of,
Yeah. No, they're awesome. Launch SA, we think you're awesome. We appreciate you. So we're kind of at the point of a midway Q&A. So if there's anyone on the call who has any questions specifically for Stephanie or for Halise, please drop them in the chat. We'd love to have them answer those for you. So we'll just give that a second here. And if so, no one jumps in on this, what we can do is keep going and kind of move into the second section. And then at the end, we can have additional questions for everyone at the end. Final call. Anyone want to throw a question in? Y'all just did a really good job, Stephanie and Halise. So I'd like to share a little bit of a story. We know when we started working on Impact Day, the intention was that it would be in person. We're really grateful to be included on our second year of participating in Entrepreneurship Week. And so our plans looked a little bit different, I'm sure y'all can imagine. So when we came back together, you know, kind of post the initial shock of quarantine and figuring out how to be together online, we talked to our team about organizations in San Antonio that they had seen who they felt like were doing a really good job of still supporting their customer base. And Halise was very quick to talk about Indie, and Indie does represent a couple of different organizations, but Indie Coffee specifically, to Alex and Christine who are on the call. And then she also talked about Scott and his team over at High Street Wine. And when she started going into detail, we were very excited and felt very honored at the possibility of having them on this call. So what I kind of wanted to do, shifting into what we wanted to do in this part, is have Halise kind of talk about that experience in a little bit more detail, and she'll kind of take over asking some questions, and then we will we'll jump to the Q&A at the end here. But we're really excited to have you guys chat and let the audience get to know you all.
Awesome. So yeah, as Amber was saying, I got to sort of watch both of these multiple entities go through everything, and it was actually really inspiring to see what they were able to do. Scott, I wanted to kind of start with you. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like for High Street to pivot and what that pivot looks like? Because I know on my end as a customer, coming every weekend to just kind of grab some wine and go back home, it was fascinating to see y'all's transition. So can you kind of speak, and then I guess kind of also, just in case people don't know who you are, the company you represent, kind of touch on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So with High Street Wine Company down at the Pearl, up until I guess the middle of March, we were a wine bar. And then as soon as this shutdown happened, we wanted to be an essential business that could operate. So we switched into essentially 100% retail with curbside as well as delivery of wine and beer and cheese boards and things like that. I guess in terms of the pivot, it's a, when you are interested in making sure that your staff has a paycheck and a job, it's a very powerful motivator. We have incredible team, just like I'm sure any of the other entrepreneurs on here. It's the people that really make the place special, and it's our people that we had to fight for. And so we made a very quick decision that, okay, this is with our license through TBC, which is a BG license. You're allowed to do beer and wine and essentially any alcohol that's under 24%. We can do this from a retail standpoint. So let's flip the business so we can actually stay and keep paychecks coming in. And so we're able to flip that. And I think the kind of interesting part about this is, in the very beginning, we made a very quick decision that we're not going to let anyone go for any reason. Like, we're going to ride this out, and we've been very fortunate to have some cash flow from this, that we were saying we're just going to hunker down and do this. And then once I spent probably about a good 24 hours, just me and a big giant notepad. It looks kind of crazy, like I'm like a San Francisco startup company, but it was like, okay, these are like the 50 things that we need to do to make this happen. And then we brought the team in for an all staff meeting, and we just like started uncovering all these talents from so many people. Like, one of our staff members, she's studying essentially IT and computer technology. So being able to utilize her to do a lot of like our website or online stores. We have someone who has previously been a graphic designer. So, okay, great. You're now designing more what the space actually looks like. We had a couple people who had previously been delivery drivers. And so it's like, okay, great. Like, give me your auto declarations. Like, let's turn you into delivery drivers. And we figure this stuff out, but it was just a work in progress and doing just a little bit here and there. But it was really utilizing the strengths of everyone on our team to just make that happen. And it's been pretty amazing to see. And then we're going to have to lean on them again as we kind of start focusing on the reopening of our inside.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, it was interesting to see every week. Like, essentially, y'all went from being a bar to what almost looked like, I mean, it looked like a startup straight up, like the entire inside. There were computers everywhere. Everyone's taking photos of the wine, putting them online. And it's like, It was fascinating to see y'all transition that so quickly.
Thank you.
Shifting over to you, Alex and Christine, I wanted to talk with y'all, like, what was y'all's pivot like with Indie, not only Indie, but also like Scorpion as well, and the second location? Like, how has that been going?
I think a lot of things that Scott kind of mentioned was an immediate thing. I think when COVID first hit, we saw a lot of our friends who own businesses deciding to shut down, and that was like a really hard decision for us. It's like, do we keep on going or do we shut down? What is the best move? And I think it was kind of tough. Like, nobody knew what to do in the situation. There wasn't really like, hey, this has happened in the past before. So I think a big thing was that we wanted to first and foremost be safe. We want to keep our staff safe and our community and our customer base safe, but I think we also wanted to be always an example of resilience. Like, kind of the theme is just continuing to keep our doors open, serving people the best that we can, and trying to figure out, I think just as entrepreneurs, like, we always are challenged with how can we make 10 options out of one option, you know what I mean? We're always kind of challenged creatively to come up with things. If you don't have enough money, if you don't have enough staff, if you don't have enough resources to do this, we're always trying to finagle and be creative in other ways. And so I think that that's kind of the immediate thing that we did. And it was a lot of, tough decisions, but I think immediately just switching over to online, adding bulk items. We did like 6 packs of cold brew, iced coffees. We did our Scorpion is a natural wine bar, and we did wine deliveries, and we did coffee deliveries. We did whatever we could, and then we switched everything over to contactless pickup and online ordering. And so it's tough because you work in hospitality. The first thing that you want to do is host people and be a good host and have them be in your business and have a good time. And then when you eliminate that, and the first people to kind of feel the impact of that is food and service industry kind of business. It was tough, but I think it really helped us to just be creative and find other options that we didn't consider in the past. And it seems like different norms now.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, of like, how you had to, you know, with both of y'all's businesses, it is about, to a certain, like, hospitality plays such a big role in like that sort of physical community response. Scott, specifically starting with you, how were you able to maintain that sense of community and hospitality, even though now you're basically completely online? I feel like maybe social media had a part to play.
Yeah, I mean, hospitality is essentially feelings, and I think sometimes that being in the service industry, there's a lot of people who think they're synonyms for each other, but we look at them as being very different. So, service being the acts that you do, and hospitality is the feeling that you get from those acts. And so, making sure that everything that we did was intentional to make it easy. So, you had mentioned all the computers and product descriptions. It's like, well, if we can't have those face-to-face conversations with you, how can we make this incredibly easy? And yet you have the comfort and confidence to know that whatever you're getting is exactly what it is that we're putting on there. A lot of people shop with their eyes, making sure, okay, yeah, we actually have a couple now photographers on our team. I mean, they're taking bottle shots and things like that. And, doing any system that you can in place so that the guests, it's the same thing, except you're just doing it online. So, I think it's part of the empathy piece that Stephanie was talking about. And it's certainly part with the connection to social media that you're talking about with YouTube. It's like, how can people still make this feel like us? And so that we can present what we're doing in our way, but with their perspective in mind. How can we make this easy? And that was essentially a lot of what we were trying to do and figure out. I'm not the biggest tech geek, so having to rely on a lot of people, but understanding what that looks like, especially from the guest perspective. If I'm used to coming in and just being like, "Hey, Scott, what kind of funky red wine do I drink?" It's like, it's so much easier for me to just say it to your face. But if I don't have that, how can we transmit that? So I think another feature that I don't think we hyped up as much as, those little tech support chat boxes that you have, and you go to any type of website, there's actually a certified or higher level sommelier at the end of that chat box. There's actually, I think, less than 20 certified sommeliers in San Antonio, but we're very fortunate to have 4 of them. So it's like, at any given point in time, like, we can kind of click that in there and just like, I don't know, I'm looking for a funky red, or I'm looking for a light white to cook with fish tonight, or take out fried chicken. What do I get? There's that option there. So still being able to connect was really, really important for us.
Yeah, and I wanted to, that idea of community too, and touching back into that, Alex and Christine, I wanted to talk to y'all about the campaign y'all did with Patty Mills. Can you kind of like talk us through that, and then also just like give us a little bit of like what you would, I'm not sure if y'all were the original kind of thought process at the top of it, or if we were asked to join, but can you kind of talk through the point of it and like the kind of need that it met within the community? As you both know, I'm sure from doing it, like domestic violence went up significantly during COVID. And so partnering in that way was very interesting.
Yeah, so that campaign came about. Patty's been a customer and also a friend. He's been coming to Indy since the trek. So we've known him for a good while, and through just him coming to Indy, we've built a great relationship with him. And when COVID started, he reached out. He's really big into supporting local wherever he's at. And so when that first started, him and his wife, Alyssa, reached out to us and asked, what can we do to support small businesses like you guys? What are the needs that you are seeing? What are some hard things? And so from the beginning, he was interested in seeing what he could do in San Antonio. And then a few weeks passed, and we got in contact again and kind of just through back and forth, this campaign came to be. So
my brother was doing a story. He's a photojournalist, and was doing a story for the New York Times on domestic violence cases in the country, and how women, or how domestic hotlines are now serviced from their homes because it can't be in an office or a call center. And so he's just like, Bexar County has one of the highest in Texas of just domestic violence, homicide cases. And, just with my brother's connection, we were like, man, this is so relevant in San Antonio. This is so relevant during COVID. And we pitched it to Patty and his team. And we're hey, how about lining up something that is tailored to our community with Mother's Day is coming up, and we'd love to, have those kind of themes aligned. And so we got to partner with 7 other local coffee shops here in town. We want to do 8 coffee shops in total, Indy included, because that's his team number. And Spurs, Black and Silver Give Back, and the whole Spurs team actually donated and contributed a part of the proceeds. He and his wife matched and doubled the revenue of all the shops that one day. And it was really like a crazy positive experience during this time. Some shops opened up that have been closed for 2 months for that day. And to finally, kind of pre this conversation to connect with Scott, and it was time to connect with other industry people that we respect and we always admire, but we never have a chance to really shake hands, like reach across the pew and connect with. We were able to connect, and it was the first time having a reason to talk with these other coffee shop owners here in San Antonio. And then to have the whole community come out and be a part of it. Not only are you contributing to a great cause, but then you get a cup of coffee or merch or whatever from, a local business. And I think it was really a win-win across the board. And we were so thankful that Spurs, Patty and his team had that heart for the city. And everything was done via social media, contactless pickup, order online. And it was revenue-breaking days for all 8 shops in one day. And that's just crazy because it's COVID and it's a window from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And just the city showed up in hordes. And people were buying gift cards and just turning around and giving them to other people. They were just buying cups of coffee for random people in the crowd that are waiting on their coffee. Everybody had like crazy 2-hour waits, and people were just doing like tours of all 8 shops, and they weren't even coffee drinkers. They're just, hey, we just want to help and support this cause. Like, what can I buy? Can I buy something? I want to buy anything. It doesn't matter what I buy. Like, I just want to contribute to the cause. And then we got so many just feedback of just, customers and just that had their own personal experience with domestic violence, and just being like, man, this is awesome. It's and it was really cool to be able to connect and hear and touch on that. This is an existing thing in our society, in our community, but it kind of opened up a point of dialogue for that too. So it's cool.
And I'm hearing that idea of just like community and coming together. And also, I think maybe surprising you how many people really showed out and what they're willing to buy, and just like anything to just help as much as possible. Scott, for you, have you kind of had any of those moments so far with High Street, with everything that's gone on? Have your customers sort of surprised you at all in any ways that you really weren't expecting?
Yeah, I think to really rally on what Alex says, I think that's actually kind of one of the charming things about San Antonio is, when if someone asks for help, the city comes out. And it's pretty amazing to see. I've been very fortunate at High Street and I'm sure some of the other business owners as well for the loyalty that a lot of guests show us. And I think it's being able to connect through the hospitality piece. It's not just a transaction, it's more of a relation. And so being able to have a good, wonderful, collective of regulars. I mean, it's still to this day, like, 90% of our business has still been repeat guests throughout the course of this shutdown. they say your best guests keep you afloat in the good, and they're certainly keeping us afloat during the bad. So that hasn't changed, and I've been very, very, very blessed with that support from the community.
I think, Amber, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're almost going over time technically for this section, but I wanted to maybe try to see if I could ask each one more question before we, move into the final part. Because I really liked the question you asked us. So it's going to be kind of a two-part question for both of you. So Indy, with y'all, is there something that you wanted to sort of launch this year in the first half of the year that you had to basically come to a halt or figure out a pivot for? And then also, is there any resources that you can think of that maybe brick and mortar location, people who are entrepreneurs who are trying to get going, anything you think can help them out?
I mean, I think one, obviously, we were in construction phase of our second location. And so when all the businesses started closing, it was kind of a scary, confusing time of, well, what does that mean? How long is this gonna last? So that, I mean, our project, we stopped working on it for a little bit, and we are now working on it again, but that was a scary thing. And then for Indy, I think kind of almost like the opposite happened, where we had a few projects like this Sixers of Cold Brew, that was always like a project that we wanted to do, but never had time for. And so that kind of, when we pivoted, it was just like, okay, think of all the ideas that we wanted to do that now we have time for. And so that kind of made us work towards or pivot in that direction of, okay, what are some things that we can do to keep people safe, but also bring in new revenue streams. And so the Dirty Brown Sixers of Cold Brew, that was one of the first things that we decided to bottle and offer as a bulk item. So it kind of had an opposite effect, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that some things that we always do with our business, or always have done since the beginning, is community focused things, where whether it's we host art shows or we host something that's we did a DIY soap making thing with offering for the community. We've done a Halloween event for the community at offering, and so when you can gather like that as people all together and your customer base to all come out, it was really tough. But just yesterday we hosted a virtual art show on our IGTV. We've hosted new expecting parents, like a 4-part series with a local therapist here in town. And then we just started a free kind of community library that has children and adult books that's based on just a diverse range of topics to get conversations going. And so people can rent the book for free. So we're pivoting and trying to find ways to still be involved with our community, but at a safe distance. And of course, we want them in our space that we work so hard to build out, and we want them to meet the artists in person, and we want to do all these things, but we had to put those all on pause because of everything that's going on. And whether I think we're optimistic about the future, and so even though things are put on pause, we're hoping and trusting that it's for a positive altogether, that people will come out and be more conscious of where they spend their money. They come out and be more conscious of who they want to support and patron, and then come out and just really, support these kinds of things that better our community. And I think that's the responsibility of entrepreneurs, is of course making money and paying our staff and being financially responsible. But on the other hand, it's like we have so much that we can do beyond that, here for our city, and making it a richer place. And so we want to make it prosper and continue to do that.
Yeah. And Scott, the same question for you. Are there any resources that you can think that maybe budding entrepreneurs would need to know, especially if they're going to get into some type of brick or mortar location? And then also, yeah, focusing mostly on that.
Yeah, I guess for me, there was some talk of purpose earlier. I think that's one of the most important things. It's figuring out who you are and why you want to do it. Because when things like this happen, you're going to have to be incredibly flexible, and you're going to have to change, and it's not going to be comfortable. But at the same time, is if you know what it is that you're trying to deliver and what you're trying to enrich the community with, and then how you're going to do it, then how you convey that message to everybody else. But if just in our situation, if we know why we want to deliver a great wine experience and how we're going to do it, then everything else essentially becomes a lot easier. Um, I guess just a real quick anecdote. When I was first kind of taking on the project of High Street in 2016, there's like 1,000 checklist point things of all the things that we had to do, and like wine list was one, like staff was one, like handbook was one, and all these things that it just seemed so incredibly daunting. But one of the best pieces of advice I got in the very beginning was write your mission statement. And essentially we did. I spent a couple of days doing it, and then from there, every single decision from then on out was easy, and it just completely fell into place. Well, why are we getting this chair than other? Why are we getting this toilet seat as a like why are we getting this wine and not getting this wine, or getting this wine and the other? And all those choices were because we wanted to be to align with our philosophy of hospitality. And so that to me is maybe some of the best advice that I was given throughout this whole thing, is just know who you are and why you want to do it.
Which I believe will be covered in a later class featuring the founder of the Impact Guild. So that'll be good. So it's topical. Amber, I believe, I think we're at time, but I know I see a few questions have popped up. Would you like me to?
Yeah. Sure. Either way. Yeah, we have a little bit of extra time since our first Q&A we didn't have any questions there, but those are going to be moved into this.
Sure.
Yeah. So really, either way, Elise, do you want to run with it? You want me to run with it?
Sure, I can do it.
Okay.
So actually, Sarah asked a really great question, and this is for you, Scott. It's Scott, you mentioned your commitment to your employees. How did you involve them in the process of pivoting? And then it'll be the same question to you, Alex, as well.
Yeah, I think it's communication. I think that's one of the pitfalls of a lot of companies is you don't really tell them what the situation is, and very early on, when we made that decision, okay, everyone's staying, everyone has value. So then when we bring them in, okay, what value can you help us in terms of flipping this? This is what it has to look like. And there's, again, 50 to 60 steps that have to happen in that regard. Let's pull your strengths and let's figure this out. And some of our tech savvy people did the tech thing. Some of our artsy people did the photography thing. Some of our sommeliers did the item description thing, and so we just slowly started knocking this out and dividing up the team amongst essentially kind of almost small, like little teams within our larger team to say, okay, this has to get done next. Okay, then we have a couple gym buffs on our team, and so like, okay, cool, y'all are moving all this stuff and all of our tables into storage so we can make room for cases of wine and make this a wine store type of thing. And it was just essentially utilizing everyone's strengths, but being very open with what it is that we needed, being very clear, trusting them with that task, and then having a system of checks and balances where it's like, this is what needs to be done. Okay, great. Like you're doing it and we're going to let you do that. And then whenever you're done, check back in with us. And then when it's done, boom, we hit post to the site. And they're just like, and we had about 400 plus wines, probably 50 plus beers, all sorts of different things. We had plans for virtual wine classes, everything like that. And that happened essentially within 6 days. So again, it takes a village, not just me, it was the whole team, but as long as everyone would knew again why we were doing this, to be able to still deliver a great wine experience to people even at home. We couldn't do it here at the shop.
I hope y'all don't mind if I jump in on this too, just because I think it might be really valuable for just the audience to hear it too. Scott, in a separate conversation, something that you said to me was that you chose not to open the storefronts, open inside, because not all of your employees were comfortable with it yet, even though at that point the city had kind of given the green light. And I think it would be great to kind of hear your thoughts on that. We kind of talked about trust and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust is the currency. I think whether it be with hospitality or really anything else, or with love, anything like that, it's the trust in someone else. And before this whole thing happened, it was like, I'm trusting for my money, my hard-earned money, then for my time, that you are going to show me a good time, whether it be with coffee or with wine or with food or whatever have you. Like, what is that? And then nowadays too, like, it has to go beyond that to your staff. And so we asked our staff internally, when we can reopen, do you all feel comfortable? And this has to be unanimous across the board. It wasn't unanimous. And, I think with a lot of other people's concerns, it's like, yeah, we don't still quite know what's going on. Testing is far behind where it needs to be. We're not doing a good enough job with contact tracing. Like, the government does not require masks. So it's like, we don't feel comfortable with this. So we stayed sheltered in, and it was listening to the team. And again, it's one of those things that if you listen to your staff, they will respond and typically outperform anything that you really give to them. And again, like, they've proven themselves above and beyond in ways that we didn't initially hire them for. So and I think going into the next phase of, as we do decide to reopen, and as just recently we did get the okay from the staff feels comfortable, how are we going to do that in a way that not only protects our staff, but in terms of hospitality now includes not just maybe getting someone a comfortable chair with good AC, a really good glass of wine. Now it's also ensuring their safety as well, and that's part of the trust that people do decide to take whenever they do come back out, and how they choose to spend their money and their time. And that's going to be a whole nother different ball game. But like, I know I kind of have my list of places that I know that their attention to detail, or their commitment to their community, or their commitment to their employees is really going to determine where I choose to place my risk whenever I do decide to go out again. And I think that's for us, we took that of paramount importance, because, like I said before, I think our team is certainly the most special part about us, and they make us really who we are. If we don't have them, they're just bottles of fermented grape juice. It's the team that makes those stories and those bottles come to life. It makes you actually want to drink wine. And that's what I think is so important about that whole thing. If you have a team that feels taken care of and buys in, then certainly the guests and customers feel it too. Hope that answers.
Thank you. No, that was, right. Thank you for sharing all of that. We just appreciate that, your perspective and sharing that with our community.
It's hard. I'm also stubborn. I don't want to close. And you gotta, I think culture is something that, a lot of people don't talk enough about that company. But, if your team feels taken care of, your team trusts you, then, they're willing to kind of venture out with you into this, this scary environment. And, I think that there's something I feel very lucky for, that is the fact that we have those open dialogues. We have that trust. Because I sure as heck know, and any other business owner on you, we can't do this by ourselves. We need other people there to help us. I'm here now and our team is working, so if that says anything.
Yes, thank you to the team. Yes, definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please. You're good.
I was going to
Sorry.
ask one of the other questions that's on here from Derek. And maybe we'll pose this one to Christine and Alex. Have any of you had any regrets about being entrepreneurs during COVID? Do you wish you had been in a more stable position? I guess Stephanie can answer after that.
That's funny because I actually, 2019, 2020 was the first year that I haven't been in the education field. So I previously, for 7 years, was a teacher and always was, on the weekends or when I got off, like helping Alex paint Indy, going and picking up supplies. So that was always, I was always closely involved, but yeah, so then this year when we finally opened our retail store and we were working on our third business location, kind of felt like, okay, this might be a good time. It was a very calculated risk for me. It took me 7 years to take the jump. And so it was kind of like, that was very real for me. Just being out of this, not comfortable, but routine, and then jumping into something completely different. And it was just like, I felt like pushed in hardcore, like you got to be in this or you're not at this point. So I think for us as a family, because Alex and I are also husband and wife, I think it's been a true roller coaster bonding experience. I'm really glad that we've been doing it together. I think it's been a huge learning experience, and I couldn't have imagined it being any other way, just because the nature of business at this time and how everything has changed just almost daily. So I think it's been really great for us to do it together. And Christy and Jake, our partners in the business, Christy also took the jump with me. She was a therapist, and so just us going through it together. I'm grateful to have her there too, because we're both kind of in the same life transition, and Alex and Jake have both been entrepreneurs together for a long time. And so yeah, it's been very interesting to say the least.
What a year to jump into entrepreneurship. But it's, we just being alongside together with our team, it's just been very real of reminding ourselves why, like for Alex and I, this is just, creating a legacy for our family and our generations to come. So just keeping that in the forefront and doing what we can together has been a really important mindset to have. And so, there's always like what ifs, right? But I feel like at this time, it's like a new chapter in our lives. And I don't know, it's been fun, scary, confusing. I don't know, ups and downs. Every day is different. But yeah.
I love it. Stephanie, do you want to answer? I'm conveniently not answering.
No, yeah, I've had my moments. I've definitely had moments of maybe I'll go back to the classroom when school starts back up, but never to the extent where I think I would really move into action. Just because I think that I just don't feel done. I don't feel done. There's so many this is such a challenging time, and there's like an energy in figuring out how to navigate it that I think is just embedded in anyone who is energized by entrepreneurship. And so I still have that. And then I did go back and read a letter that I wrote myself when I left my job, which helped a lot. and just reminded me of why I took the leap to begin with, and made me realize that a lot of the reason I hadn't fulfilled a lot of the dreams that I had for CREA yet. And so it's a good reminder of, I guess, like Scott said, like who you are and why you're doing it.
Scott?
All right. Yeah. You know, it's I really don't have any regrets with this. When I took the position, I knew what it is, what I was signing on for. Any of these other business owners or general managers, or you know what you're getting into. Yeah, this is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. But the one thing that I always like to take away is you tend to learn the most about yourself whenever you're pushed to your limits. And this, to me, I can't imagine it getting much harder other than maybe this reopening that we're about to tackle. But we knew this when we signed on for it. When you become an entrepreneur, you decide to do a business owner, you figure out what it is. And I think as Christine said, what is this legacy that we want to do? How do we want to impact those around us? And it's not just always the community, but it's also our staff. And it's also, how do we share our love for what it is that we do with everybody else? And being a business owner, this gives you a platform to share that love and that passion with other people. And yes, it is extremely hard, and COVID did not make it any easier. I will tell people all the time in the past several of these sommelier exams, opening your own business is, I think, harder than a lot of this stuff. And it's because it's not something that you do alone, and you have all these people who are counting on you, whether it be business partners, whether it be employees, people who are looking at you to try to do the best decision, not only for their company, but also for their livelihoods. So when you're signing up for a lot of responsibility. But at the same time, it's so incredibly rewarding when you get to see all these regulars and people coming back and being able to spread, your mission, your love, and your passion to those around you. It's pretty incredible. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Very happy with it.
So, Elise, just in case, did you have anything that you would want to add to that too?
I feel like everyone covered it. I feel like they did so well. I know for me, I don't have a brick and mortar location like they do. And so I don't necessarily have, the full-time employees and thinking about, especially, which part of the reason why my business is structured the way it is because the idea of having people's livelihoods depend on my decision-making is terrifying to me. And so that's why my business has been mostly online. I think the biggest exciting thing about being an entrepreneur for me through this time was that I got to see the value of being online. It wasn't that I had to close, it was that I just shifted how the online business works. And that was really freeing for me. And that was why I became an entrepreneur, to have that level of pivoting and freedom and giving in a way that I knew I could, that was sustainable. So yeah, I would not trade it as well. I really enjoy what I do a lot.
Can I add one thing? Another thing that occurred to me while you guys were talking was just like, once you're doing what you do for a certain amount of time, you start to feel a sense of, you feel a sense of responsibility for the people who follow your work and who are cheering you on. And so it just like let the feeling of regret or like the feeling of like, I want to give up. It's like, you're not just giving up on yourself, you're giving up on the people who have encouraged you and who have followed your work and who your work is serving too. And so that, I think, has really kept me going.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. I think part of today, part of our goal is our hope for other entrepreneurs to kind of hear the authenticity around the hard parts too, and about even though you wouldn't change it and you wouldn't trade it, nonetheless it's difficult. I feel like that sort of goes without saying right now, but just for individuals to really feel connected through that is helpful, and y'all sharing your stories is important. There, we really appreciate that. There was one more question in the chat. We have time for this last one from Maria, and so and then we'll sadly kind of start wrapping up here. But so through pivoting and all the various ways that you all have you all discovered new ideas or maybe a process that you wish you had before? And so, you know, it's kind of suggested idea that something that you can really build, that you can build something new in the future, a potential silver lining. So when do you want to go first?
I actually don't mind because it's actually something I'm actively working on right now. Something that a lot of the subscribers I had kept asking for was editing and like production classes, like teaching them how to create their own videos. So maybe if they are a small business or they have a nonprofit and they're trying to get going, but they can't necessarily afford a production company, they can kind of take on that role themselves through the classes and the courses. But I'd never quite figured out how to do it in a way where it was like sustainable. And until now, COVID forced me to figure that out. And I just am in the process of doing post-production on my first online class of how to do basic editing, open Premiere if you've never opened it, set up a project with a nonlinear editing software and get a video from like start to finish out and what that looks like. So I had been slacking on that for years and I finally did it.
That's incredible.
I think
and
for
such a
us,
response. Yeah, that's great. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think for us, it's, yeah, the pivots really made us realize like, you know, going back to like doing little 6-pack cold brews and stuff and our pastries delivered and stuff like that is, our shop is small, our UTSA shop is small, and we always max out of the amount of people that can be inside the shop during our busy times. And so oftentimes if people can't find a seat, they'll turn away. And I think that being able to take something where we're not relying on foot traffic all the time, like daily coffee drinkers, and we're able to be like, here's 6-pack, we'll deliver it to your house. Here's a box of pastries, we'll deliver it to your house. And it's experiencing kind of like our business daily for them without having to rely so heavily on the day-to-day interaction and kind of replicating a small, you know, indie experience for the customer in the comfort of their home, I think was something that, you know, was really like, man, why didn't we do this earlier? And then also the idea sparked of like getting our product when we can package it or bottle it to other, you know, places that people don't get to get a chance to come to our side of town or and experience the cafe experience. So I think it was really like kind of like a aha moment to be able to you know, get our product into more people's hands without having them rely heavily on coming to our location, finding a parking spot, finding a seat, you know, doing all that. So it's cool.
Stephanie, go ahead.
Oh, sure. I was like, who's next? Okay. Yeah, I think for me, it helped me think through like the simplest and most impactful way for me to achieve what I want to achieve, which is fostering creativity and self-exploration and curiosity in kids. And now not just in schools, but at home. And so it helped me just really refine the resources, tools, and like curriculum materials that I offer and think about like, how can I make this as simple to implement as possible for teachers who are confused about how to navigate distance learning and for families who are trying to homeschool and also work jobs and also, you know, have healthy relationships with their kids amidst like a crazy time when you just want to scream. And so it helped me just like go back and look at like where I had complicated things, where things could be cleaner and easier to use.
Yeah, and I'd say with us, we didn't have any idea that we could sell wine online. But not only that, we've been doing like wine classes as well. So through Zoom and things like that. And, who knows, Elise, I might ask you about how to set up a wine YouTube channel at some point. But this essentially has kind of told us what I think our plan is for number 2. So our second location, we're looking at essentially being a bistro, but with all the uncertainty that's going on in the market, business partner is in risk management, and so he holds me in check in a good way. And we're not confident that COVID's going anywhere, and so being able to stay mobile, stay secure, stay essential is important. And just strictly from numbers, the unfortunate restaurant, bar, and alcohol sales are down 23%, but retail wine sales are up 13%. So it's like, okay, well, if we can't essentially have a business that's open with people walking through our doors, then maybe we need to have a business that will help support the current time. Still being able to do whatever it is that we do, but now in maybe a bit more of a digital or online type of format. Than with potential delivery and things of that nature as well. So still being able to have the culture of wine, but again, a slightly different way. So we'll probably be keeping the online form. We really enjoy it. And at the same time, it makes it more accessible to be able to get more good wine in more people's hands.
It's great. We want to end just by thanking each of you panelists. You all had such a unique perspective, and we're so appreciative of you all sharing that with the community. Want to just let you know too that in the chat there is a follow-up survey. Well, you'll be sent a follow-up survey. It's also in the chat as a participant if you'd like to fill that out. That does help us just figure out for future years and so on, like especially also if this is something next year that's still online. I mean, hopefully not, but if so, just how we can continue to improve it. So we really appreciate your feedback. And then lastly, for Impact Day, just want to let you all know you can still register. We'd love for you to come to either of our next sessions, well, and the rest of the week too. San Antonio Entrepreneurship Week has done a great job with the events that they put together, but at 3, our founder, Sarah, who many of you may know, Sarah Woolsey, and Travis Baird, who's the co-founder of Visualized Copy, they will walk you guys through a workshop. Now, I can't remember how, I think it was through something Scott had mentioned and Elise recognized it as well, but the conversation is about, it's a workshop that is about the root of resilience and how utilizing empathy and authenticity can at least help to recession-proof your business. So I think that's going to be a great workshop. And then at 5 o'clock, we're going to host a happy hour that is called Pairing Hope and Uncertainty. And what's really exciting too is Scott actually curated a resilience pack of 4 different wines that each have a story of resilience. And so you all can order that online and have it ready for the happy hour or just in general. They have a lot of cool things on there, but they all have a neat story. And you can do that at highstreetwine.com, or that's all linked in our Instagram profile too. So lastly, again, we thank you all. This was really special. You all are an encouragement to all of us. And again, yeah, we thank you all. We hope to see y'all in future sessions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.